What's going on, guys? Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net, and welcome to this video examining Ben Shelton's massive serve technique, right? 149 miles an hour today at the US Open. Let's check out the good things in Ben's serve and maybe one thing he might want to fix. All right, guys, so let's just jump into this here real quick. Ben Shelton's first serve, right? So we'll take a close look at this technique and just talk about the serve technique a little bit. A couple things here. 149 miles per hour at the US Open a couple times in his match earlier today against Tommy Paul. So again, a lot of gas on this serve. Young player, very positive person, very fun on court. So let's break down the serve technique. A couple things that we see here right in the beginning, right? Just kind of meeting ball and racket out here in the front and gets a lean forward to start on his serve, right? Which is pretty traditional. So most people tend to lean forward with their body weight and establish a forward position in the beginning of the serve. Just before that even, he establishes a little bit of a ball bounce ritual, bounces the ball a few times before meeting with the racket in front like this. Is something that I like my players to do. Meet with the ball and racket out in front before they take their body weight and shift it to the back foot. I just like it in that order for the coordination of the events and to get the serve into a good rhythm. The next thing that we notice, right, ball and racket here, meeting at or around the throat of the racket right here. And then again, that lean with the body forward, very strong and solid position. As you come forward from here, we can see the space of the feet, right? Back foot, heel of the back foot and the back shoe is a little bit off the ground. Front foot is flat at this point, and then as we come forward from here, he's going to start to shift his weight backwards onto that back foot, and he has a pretty wide base from this position with his feet, right? So we can see how wide that base is with the feet right there. Has a very good solid wide position. Racket and ball now down closer to the knee level, right? Has them nice and low. Everything is relaxed. We can see the front leg is fairly straight at this point, and the back leg now right here, right? Starting to establish a little bit more of a bend as he shifts onto that back leg. So that's important, right? Getting that back leg ready to get moving. And then from this position here, guys, he starts to extend his upper body, right? And straighten his back just a little bit here. We see that he starts to extend up with the torso. And then from this position, right, the racket is down, but on the left side of the body right here. So it remains on this side, doesn't have that big racket leg of somebody like, a Serena Williams, but the tossing arm now as well, starting to come up from this point. And we can see, right, he ends up coming from a flat-footed position here with the front foot onto his tippy toe, a little bit of the front of the foot right here. And then that back foot is going to start to slide forward from this position and start to move up. We can see when he goes into this position, right, hits a couple of kind of key technical checkpoints. His ball toss kind of tosses, brings it down close to the leg from this position. And then when he tosses, he releases it above eye level. So his tossing point, his release point, is actually kind of high. What we usually see is at eye level or around forehead level for most people. He releases a little bit above that point. And then from there, he really leans into everything right here. So look at the extension and the load. To me, this is actually a little bit too much of a quote-unquote bow and arrow position. The racket is still down, so we still have leg. It's on the left side of the body right over here, right? And we can see this extreme extension and stretch through the core, through the ribs. Everything is stretched at this point. And then from there, we see this extreme kind of hip lean that he kind of implements into his serve. Now, I'll say this, and I'm not trying to be critical of his service motion. He's hitting absolute darts and bombs out there right now at the US Open. Has been doing it for a while, right? 149 today. But this level of hip lean for a normal player, even a tour player, it can put a lot of stress on the hip as you go into the quote-unquote trophy position right here. I do believe for him, this position is a little bit extreme. And I'm going to bring up a clip really quick just to show that. All right, so we just let this one play a little bit here real quick. We've got a side-by-side again. And what we see is as Ben comes into this position right here, right, and we get into that hip lean position, look at the extreme lean that he sort of has right over here, right, into this position right here. It's not a position that you typically want to get into, is having this hip really flare out over the baseline like this. It can put a lot of tension and a lot of stress on the hip right here. And over the course of time, he's super young right now, but over the course of time, that extreme lean of the hip, just kind of leaning and bowing out with the hip over the baseline, can cause injury. So when I look at this service motion, there's a lot of good things going on here, but this extreme hip lean over the baseline is not one of them. It can lead to injury. I would not recommend that any juniors, recreational players, anyone try to implement this extreme hip lean on their serve. All right, so just taking things from this position right here, we talked about that extreme hip lean. We do want to avoid this position. I do hope that over the course of time, Ben doesn't end up injured from bowing over and over again over that baseline, leading with the hip like that. You want to get more of a position instead of doing this right here, where you kind of just coil the body a little bit more instead to get that twist motion. I don't want to see that hip bowing right over the baseline just like that. Just again, injury reasons. He's got an extreme stretch through the core we talked about, the straightening of the arm. We can see the racket is still down. We're getting some racket leg going right there. And then from that position, right, we know that the back foot as well. Look at the back foot, how it slides up towards the front foot right there. And he does a pretty good job of keeping the back foot from sliding over here in this direction. A lot of recreational players will make the mistake of taking that back foot and then sliding it out to the left of the front foot like that. And they'll tend to over rotate the hips too early on the serve. So a lot of people really do struggle with that. It's not something you 100% have to have perfect. There can be a little bit of difference in the placement of that foot as it comes back. But typically, if we step way over here, we tend to over-rotate this hip and open it up a little bit too early. And then just from that position, guys, again, look at the angles with the trophy position here, eyes looking up at the ball from that stage. And then that tossing arm is going to start to come down and pull. Ben is going to go from this extreme bent position, right, with the legs, get a really deep bend, and then he's going to start to show his chest up to the ball at this point. Eyes also looking at the ball, but chest flexing towards the ball here, extending and showing to the ball. And then he's got a pretty solid racket drop here. His racket drop is not, believe it or not, as deep as a lot of servers. So he gets into this position here, tip of the racket down just below the glutes, but there are some people a little further. Andy Roddick dropped that a little bit further. And then from this position, guys, the elbow, hitting elbow will lead up towards the ball like this. And then we start that pronation process up to contact right here. We can see at contact or almost at contact. The hitting arm right now is completely straight at this point, but the racket, right, not completely straight, a slight angle off to contact with the racket. And then from here, we see the pronation as the racket turns out. His racket head speed is so fast that this is a slow motion clip, right? It's slowed down, but his racket head speed is so fast that even then, just a couple of frames, his racket moves that far in just a super short distance. A couple other things we can see from here, right? He really extends with the legs, gets up into the contact, gets himself off the ground, probably my guess about 4 to 6 inches here at impact with the ball. And then the body, right, is still a little bit closed off to the net, just slightly at an angle at contact. And we can see the hips also just slightly at an angle. He finishes there with the pronation. And then now he starts to open up to the net, and he will finish by landing inside the baseline with the front foot, and the back foot will naturally kick back and up to keep us from falling over and tipping over as we land inside the court. Again, the only thing I really have concern with in this service motion, pretty deep knee bend here, and when we achieve this position right here, that hip and the stress on that hip over the course of time, I would like somebody to kind of talk to his team a little bit and review that just to make sure that injury in the future is not an issue for Ben. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video on Ben Shelton's serve technique. If you found this helpful or you feel you learned something today, make sure you smash the like and subscribe button. It helps this channel continue to grow. I'm Jason Frausto for tennisunleashed.net. I'll see you next time.